This is The Vocal Minority.
Hello, everyone. My name is Morgan Freeman. It's my great pleasure to introduce you to the two best guys in the podcast game. Welcome to The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve. Come on this journey with the boys and make sure to follow, comment, download, and like. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go grab a couple of cold pops and remind Andy Dufresne that the world's best podcast, The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve, is just about to start. Good day.
The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve.
Go tell them, dude. We're starting right now. You don't want to ever be late for the podcast. I guess that's impossible because you hit play. Welcome to the show, The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve.
Back again. Let's go to Morgan Freeman to chime in. Did they call them pops in the movie? Is that why he said that there?
Yeah. How about a couple of cold pops for my boys, you know?
Funny. You know, I'm from Michigan, which is what we refer to soda as pop. And I didn't know until I moved out of Michigan that was not a thing.
Is that just Michigan?
I mean, it's definitely a Midwestern thing, yeah. I mean, when I came out west, people looked at me like I, had three eyeballs, like talking about, can we get a pop at the store or something?
Yeah, I grew up with that. But I come from the Midwest, so maybe that's why,
No, California beat that out of me. But, Kennedy is from Michigan as well. And that was one of the first questions she asked me when we were on, the dating app messaging back and forth. She's like, you're from Michigan? I am too. When did you stop calling them pops?
So you don't do it now? Just out of wanting to stick with your roots?
No, I mean, it's tough living on the West Coast. You got to get rid of some of those Midwestern things because you just look like a moron. If I went into a restaurant around here and ordered a pop, I don't think anyone would have any idea what I was talking about.
Really? I always ask, what do you have for pop? And they always seem to read me the list.
Interesting. I'm going to have to try that a few times and see. But
yeah, let us know.
Yeah. Anyways. All right. Yeah. It's the Vocal Minority. Nick and Steve, Midwestern dudes who are now on the West Coast, apparently. So we're worldly, seasoned.
That's right. The West Coast is the best coast, or is it? Oh, well, stick around for the podcast, dude, to find out how we're doing.
It is the best coast.
Okay.
So, yeah. You can find our website. That's a universal thing. It's on the World Wide Web. It's thevocalminority.net. There's stuff there.
Yeah, we have all kinds of social medias. Our biggies are TikTok, YouTube, and Reddit. Really starting to make an impact on us, too. You can see us anywhere. And thanks for downloading, listening, sharing the podcast. We appreciate all the support. But when you've already listened to the shows for the week, go check out our social media, and you can be tantalized.
Yeah. My dad called me today. He was like, I've noticed the clips that you post are only 60 seconds long. I thought your podcast was longer than 60 seconds.
Doctor. But to be fair, I'm pretty sure your dad is new to TikTok because I think it's been a week ago that I got a follow request from the doctor.
Oh, really? See, it's funny because I sent my dad that prediction video, the first one that got nearly 60,000 views. I sent him the link on TikTok, assuming he would just open it in some web browser. But as soon as he read it or saw it, I got a notification that he has a TikTok account. I had no idea.
Yeah, no, it's fairly new as far as I could tell. Yeah, it must be just after that video. So that was only a couple weeks ago.
I have a couple of TikTok questions for you before we get into our topic for this hour.
Yeah, I'd love to answer any TikTok question I can, as long as one of them's not like, how long should you be on TikTok every day? Because I don't want to reveal it.
Well, okay, then let's talk about attention spans, because I got two questions here. One of them is about attention spans, because you and I have talked about this on the show before, that we have noticed our attention span is dropping. And you and I both watch a lot of TikTok videos, which are generally 60 seconds or less.
Right. Yeah.
So do you ever see videos? And the best example I get a lot is Destiny, the famous internet debater guy. And I can't tell if he posts his videos this way or if somebody's reposting it. But it's a split screen video. And on the one side is the content. It's Destiny talking with his, debate guest or whatever. And that's the audio you're hearing. But it's all happening on one side of the screen.
Right.
Other side of the screen, I don't know how to describe it. It's some sort of detail-oriented task happening, like somebody is spray washing a carpet or somebody is bending metal into shapes they could use for some intricate thing around your house.
It's what's known as ASMR for your eyes. You're going to watch somebody sculpting clay, something that's visually satisfying and pulls you in. And it does keep your attention when you're listening to the video. You're still seeing Destiny up there, but you can see like people woodworking and making really satisfying cuts or something like that. You know, I think it does work.
I'm assuming it does. And I had because at first I was like, why do they do this? I just thought it was some random thing. But then I realized like it's for our short attention spans, right? They're trying to give us two things to focus on, knowing that it'll hook us in longer.
100%. And you know what? It's like, when you start drinking alcohol, if you keep building that tolerance, you know, it's going to take more and more to get loaded. I feel like seeing these videos that way is building our tolerance. I feel like we're breaking our brains to pay attention to life.
Yeah. I think this is going to have some serious long-term detrimental effects. It may take us a while to realize, but all of our attention spans have been just destroyed. And yeah, I hadn't connected the dots, but yeah, that is why they're doing it, is to draw your attention span and further. I've also seen a lot of female influencers who are giving advice about whatever relationships, and they're sitting there doing their makeup the entire time they're doing it. And at first I was like, why do you have to do your makeup while you're, it's the same thing. They're giving you something else to focus on, some task going on that helps you endure their philosophies or whatever, or sucks you in more.
Yeah, it just sucks you in. I mean, some people will play video games and you're just watching the video game while it just gives you something to glue into. And like you said, you know what? We go over and play cards with my mom on Saturdays, a lot of Saturdays throughout the month. And while we're playing cards, Rachel will have her phone on the table. And while it's not her turn, and there's only two other people there, so it's not like it's a long time until it's your turn again, she's playing games on her phone. She's constantly like moving around. And I asked her, I was like, why do you do that? Like, why? Be in the moment. And she was like, you guys take forever. And I was like, forever? What are you talking about?
Yeah. That's funny, because that's essentially what those videos represent. Two things going on at once.
Yes.
And we've started doing that in real life. Like you're saying, playing cards and you're on your phone. I'm a huge fan of Supercross and motocross, but there are times where those races, it's like, you know, the leader's pretty far ahead. I'm sitting there on my phone, like watching the race, but I'm also playing a game or surfing social media. Like our lives have become a split screen. When picture was first a thing, I found it hard to focus on two videos at once. But this summer for the Olympics, I was watching everything on a 4 screen, watching 4 different athletics going on at one time. I had no problem tracking it.
Dude, it blows my mind. I mean, I know all these things that you're saying, but I've never put them all together and really thought about them. It's crazy to think about how it's affecting us, 48, 45-year-old people or whatever. But think about kids that are born, that this is the only way their brain is ever going to work.
It's either going to be insanely detrimental to society as a whole, or it's going to, I guess, create some super mind that can function on multiple levels at once. Maybe this is how we cure cancer or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an odd behavior because we grew up constantly. If the TV was on, we were sucked in and it was like, oh, this is great. I'm watching a VHS from Blockbuster. Like, this is the thing. But now, man, I tell you, if you don't impress me in the first 10 seconds off and on the video, I'm like, boom, no chance, boom.
You know? I get to see our analytics, and the vast majority of people, and this is not a commentary on us, it's on everyone, most people don't get more than 2 seconds into a video where they're next.
And you think about that for a minute, dude, because that somehow in your brain, within 2 seconds, it has to be audibly and visually stunning or, you know, exciting to that person. So that's pretty crazy, dude.
Well, so I've been thinking, I think we should do an experiment. Let's post one of our videos on whatever the topic is, just as we normally would, and then give it a couple of days. I want to post the same version, but with the split screen, with somebody whittling or whatever on the other side. I want to see if it keeps people sucked in further or not.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, dude, because I think we may be surprised at it. So, yeah, let's try it.
Yeah, I guarantee it's going to work. So I don't want all of our videos to be that now, but yeah, this attention span thing, it's difficult to overcome.
Maybe if we just have a split screen of a woman and her boobs, you know, like, can we make it porno? in some light way.
You and I are so dialed in because that's the next question I have. And this is a serious question. Do you ever see naked women on TikTok?
Very, very infrequently, but yes.
Right. So the other night I'm flipping through TikTok and listen, I've said this before. I'll acknowledge it. I don't know why the algorithm does this for me, but yeah, I get a lot of videos of just attractive women dancing to random songs. And it's a big thing on TikTok, right? And some of them are in bikinis or whatever. And yes, I have found some of the most beautiful women on the planet on TikTok. Just these people that aren't Hollywood actresses or whatever, but it's like, holy crap, that's a stunningly beautiful woman.
Right.
Lost my train of thought. No, I'm just joking. So the other day, one of these women that does a dance to some random song, right? Like I've seen her videos pop up and they've dialed me in on that algorithm. So I see her stuff every now and again. I flip on and it's just her buck naked.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I was completely taken aback because I've never seen something like that on TikTok. My first thought was, my teenage son is on TikTok. Like, is this a thing? So I did stare at it for a good, 10, 20 seconds, A, admiring on some level, but B, more so, I was just truly, honestly shocked that I was seeing this on TikTok. So we've talked about this on the show before. TikTok is the most paranoid, sensitive social media platform there is when it comes to bullying or bad language or anything, right?
Yeah, they're really hard on us, scrutinize all our content on there, and remove it if they find it unfit.
So I thought I would be a good member of the TikTok society, and I reported the image of this naked woman, who, by the way, had like 79,000 likes or something. I mean, it wasn't a brand new picture. It's clearly been making the rounds, right?
Wow, dude. You stepped up and took a bullet for society.
Yes. Listen, porn is all over the internet. It does not need to be all over TikTok. But then the disturbing thing was, because I sat there on that image for whatever, 20 seconds or something, the next 4 things I scrolled to were all naked women.
No way.
1,000,000,000% not making this up. So somehow, even though that's totally against the community standards on TikTok, the algorithm knew that I looked at a naked woman and then started showing me multiple. And the second one, I was like, that's a weird coincidence. I'm flagging this one too. Swiped. Next one, I'm like, wait a minute. And I start flipping. It was like 4 or 5 naked women in a row. I had to close the app and just be like, hold on. I'm not trying to go down some rabbit hole here. This is not what I go on TikTok for. I can find that stuff elsewhere. I want my normal political and dirt bike videos and Marvel stuff. Like, what is going on here?
That's insane. I've like I said, I've seen them very infrequently, but never back to back to back. Yeah. That's crazy.
It was very weird. And I know there's some social media platforms, Twitter being the biggest one, where there's porn all over the place. And it's not in my algorithm, but I know it's out there. Ted Cruz famously liked a porn on Twitter once. And Leon Musk recently announced that was no longer a violation of community standards on Twitter. They fully allow porn on Twitter now.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I don't want to sound like some old man here, but I was truly shocked and taken aback that there were naked pictures on TikTok. So
this leads me to another interesting thought that I just wanted to ask you, because you brought up like the safety of our children, with your son is, he's 15 years old, right? Like, so are you hoping that he doesn't see that stuff, or are you, he sees that stuff and looks at it intentionally?
I've tried to glean from afar what stage my son is at, because by 13, 14, I was looking at porn and jerking off, and he just turned 15. So he's got to be in that window to some extent, but he's expressed no interest in women or men in any conversations. Like, there's a cute person at school he's crushing on. He hasn't told me any of that stuff. I do notice he spends some excessive amounts of time in the bathroom every now and again, so it could be going on.
Yeah.
On one level, this is life. Like, naked pictures and women, like that's just life. Like, you and I did it. I stole Playboys from my dad and hid them under the bed. Like, it's just a natural thing. It's also nothing that I wanted my dad involved in, nor would I want to get involved with him and
sure
any recommendations or anything like that. But I have thought, because of the proliferation of porn, how extremely easy it is to get access to, which was not true when we were kids, and the fact that porn has become so denigrating to women. all of this violence and smacking them and spitting in their face and slapping your sausage around their head and stuff. Like, I kind of want to pull them aside at some point and just be like, hey, dude, you need to understand that some of that stuff you're seeing is not real. That is not how you should be treating a woman. You know,
that was my next question, is when that conversation would happen, because I know you'll have the conversation, specifically that conversation at some point, and I think it's an important one to have. But yeah, there's some people in my family where, like, I saw maybe 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old, I came across anime porn that I left in the search box, you know. Right. And I was like, wow, dude, anime porn, I guess that's kind of a nice progression. Like, you should be maybe a little older before you get to the real stuff. But yeah, it's a weird thing. I just wondered.
Yeah, it definitely is a weird thing. Pull whoever that was aside and say, there's much better porn out there. What are you looking at anime for? That's
right. Yeah, I don't think I can show them pictures or anything, but I could tell them, like, don't waste your time with that, dude.
Right. But yes, you do have to respect people out there, respect women, and porn does offer some good tips, quite frankly. And I've made the point before that it's watching porn for me is like an athlete watching game films, like it gets you fired up for the real thing. So, you know, we talked last podcast as to whether or not Kennedy approved of me watching porn. I'm going to have the discussion with her, or maybe I'll just tell her now and she'll hear it. Yeah, you want me staying in game mode. You know, the days you're gone, you want me having ideas and keeping that fire going. So
yeah,
porn is beneficial to everyone in this little circle. But yes, the disrespect in porn is way out of control. I don't know where it came from. And respect is a key thing in this world.
Yeah. Porn is your fluffer. I think that's the way you just describe it to Kennedy, and just tell her, like, it gets me ready for your game day. You take it very seriously. With that said, you have so much respect, and I appreciate those behaviors. And it leads me into this article that I found that I wanted to mention to you. These are little behaviors that make people respect you more. Do you have any that you know, like, oh, I do this and I know it makes people respect me more?
Is smacking them in the face with my sausage, is that somewhere on this list?
No, dude.
Okay. Okay, good.
So, no. Let me just read my list, because I don't think your list is worthy. If it starts with sausage smacking, we're talking different things.
I see. The only example I can think of right away, holding the door open for someone. I do that often for strangers. I mean, obviously I do it for my kids or Kennedy, but I do it often for strangers. And yeah, I think that would hopefully garner some respect.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. As we start this list out, these are all different behaviors. We'll see if that one is on the list. These are the behaviors that make people respect you more. And the article starts out with having confident body language. Look at the people you respect. Observe how they hold themselves. You've always seen a jackass that, is like all slumped over and just like doesn't care about what's going on. And yeah, you lose a little respect for that guy. Like, sit up, dude. Hey, look engaged, have confident body language.
It's funny, when I was 12, 13 years old or something, my dad started telling me, like, you walk around with your shoulders down a lot. You should put your shoulders back and stand up tall. I'm a tall guy. You're going to be a tall guy, and people respect tall men. So you want to put your chest out with confidence and stand up straight. Your height will get people to respect you.
Interesting.
And I always thought that was sort of weird and comical. Like, I didn't believe him. And it wasn't until recently in my dating exploit since my divorce that I realized how attractive women find taller men and how intimidating other men find taller guys.
You've said that a lot throughout your dating, and I believe you only because, you're out in the real world doing it. But I've never had a issue, and maybe it's because I'm not a short man. Do you think it's just short men that are like, oh, I'm a little inferior of a tall guy? Or
I think it's pretty much anyone under 6 feet from what I've gleaned. Because the joke on the dating apps were that all men are 5'10", and if you say you're 5'10", you're probably 5'7", or 5'8" or something. Everyone wants to round up and be in that bigger category, and there's definitely the Napoleon complex about actual short men feeling inferior and like they need to be machismo and invade countries and whatnot.
Well, think about the way that Superman stands, I mean, he stands up, shoulders back, straight up, hands on hips, chest out. Like, that is the way to garner a little respect.
Yeah. Our buddy Brad, who lives around here, who I, do lunches with and stuff, and Brad's a slightly older dude, and he's a well-natured guy and is, always very outspoken with his thoughts. One time, this was several years ago, I made a comment to him about, I don't know, something about that some dude was getting in my face or whatever, and I wasn't going to get in some fight. I just walked away, and Brad looked at me and he was like, I wouldn't want to get in a fight with you. You're intimidating. And I was like, I'm intimidating? What are you basing that on? He was like, you're a big dude. Like, look how tall you are. That's intimidating. And Brad is 5'9", and the fact that was what he gravitated towards. You're tall. You're intimidating.
That's interesting. It must be a real thing, dude. I know in the dating world, even all the shows that I see, like, I don't know, any of the dating shows, women are always like tall. That's on their list. Like, they would like a tall person. So we're going over a list of behaviors that make people respect you more. As this article continues, the next one is speaking articulately. I think it depends which sort of crowd that you're in, right? Who are you hanging out with? What are you doing? Speaking articulately, I think, can mean several different things depending on your audience and your crowd. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I had a broadcasting teacher when we were doing a vocabulary class talking about the fact that the way someone speaks publicly is not actually necessarily indicative of their intelligence. And at that time, George W. Bush was our president, and we always made fun of W because he was a terrible public speaker. But, he was also a college graduate and ran businesses. Like, he obviously wasn't just some drooling moron.
Right.
When you speak unarticulately, you can certainly make yourself sound that way. And his point was, you may not be the brightest person, but you can compensate the other way. If you learn to speak articulately, use some words that people may not completely understand, like, you can actually trick people into thinking you are smarter than you are just by learning to speak a little better.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think you can also roll this the other way, is that sometimes the smartest of all people will dumb down their language. Again, in certain situations, like I said, it just depends who you're talking to, right? There's a time and a place. And if I'm trying to garner the respect of, I don't know, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but someone who speaks differently than I normally do, I might dumb myself down a little bit. It helps build a rapport.
It's funny, that same broadcasting class, it was a vocabulary class. And it was like an 8-week course, and it was all a bunch of words, some of which I already knew, and then a lot of words that I didn't know. And so we went through this whole class, and we took all these tests on all these words and what are their definitions. And we got to the end of the class, and the teacher said, all right, students, you've now learned all of these fancy words. Do not ever use them on TV or the radio. And everyone was like, well, why'd you teach them then if we're not supposed? I thought we were supposed to try to sound smart by using these words. And he said, I taught them to you so you can translate for others. So that if you have a guest on who's using one of these fancy words, you can articulate to the audience what they're saying. So if you have a guest on talking about, the flora and the fauna is what we really need to worry about on the planet. And like, oh, the flora and the fauna. So the plants and the animals are what we need to be worried about. I just translated for the audience.
Yeah.
Or a lot of politicians use words you don't understand. So you can say, oh, what President Obama meant is blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, that's it's a brilliant way of thinking and necessary because not everyone operates on the same level. Rachel will oftentimes throw out a word that I'm like, what does that mean? And it's surprising to her, not because she thinks I'm an idiot, but it's surprising to her, like, oh, you don't know what and she'll explain it to me, but she uses that in her everyday language of law and litigation, and I don't know it. That's just how the world works.
No, and around her fellow lawyers, I'm sure they're all in that same bubble and they all know it. But when she goes in front of a jury, she better not use some of those words, or she better translate them for the jury. Because if you're an effective communicator, the average Joe has to understand what you mean.
It's a perfect example. And I mean, that's what makes her good at her job. One of the things, is to be able to talk to people on, their same level. So it's important. We're going over behaviors that make people respect you more. How about a display immense self-control? And I tell you what, dude, I could not agree with this one more. I mean, I couldn't, because when you display an immense amount of self-control, to me and to psychologists, it would show that you're emotionally mature. And to have control over your emotions is hard, dude. I get it. We all fall out of it. But if you can display that immense self-control, I think it does garner respect from people. Like, wow, you stayed so cool and calm, dude.
That's a tricky one. It's like proving a negative. You know, like, how do you know I'm using self-control? Because I didn't fly off the handle? You just assume I'm using self-control, or I didn't get angry? Can I tell a woman at the end of a date, like, hey, I didn't try to molest you tonight? Just great self-control. You know?
No, you can't, dude. I think what this is more implying is that, like, if I'm in a restaurant and a Karen comes up to me and I don't bitch slap her, you know, like, wow, dude, you really had a lot of self-control there. Like, I was going out of my mind. I don't know what I would have done if that was me in that situation.
Because I would prefer someone did slap the Karen. I'd be like, good for you. I wanted to do that.
Maybe that was a bad example. Yeah.
But, you know, I get your point. I mean, if someone's getting in your face and you take the high road, you know, yeah, sure, that can garner respect.
Yeah.
These are all not looking like you're getting walked on.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, like you said, you always got to find a middle ground, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're going over behaviors that make people respect you more. And this is an interesting one. We've talked about this on the podcast before. This one says, never indulge in gossip. Never's a strong word, but I do understand what this article is talking about. That, you know, you don't want to be that person who goes and gossips about your friends and everyone else. Like, you don't want to spend your life talking about other people and putting them down.
I mean, yeah, someone who's just a gossip hound all the time, that's definitely, you know, a negative. But yeah, I mean, it's also a sign of closeness if I feel like I can gossip. Hey, dude, did you hear what Larry was doing?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, but in a generic sense, if you're at some cocktail mixer and you're rising above it, I guess that can make you look more respectable.
Oh, that guy doesn't talk shit. Like, he's good. He's just good that way. You know, you get a little respect from people. Yeah. These are all behaviors that make you respectable.
I feel like a good portion of this podcast is gossiping. I mean, we talk about our personal lives a lot.
This is for entertainment purposes only, though, right? Like, we couldn't sit and gossip like this, you know, in a room full of strangers without them walking away being like, man, he never shuts up, talks shit about everybody.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Next behavior that'll make people respect you a little more. Educating yourself so that you're knowledgeable in topics that are important to you. Yeah, don't have such a passion like, oh, yeah, I believe in, you know, global warming is a huge issue, and then know nothing about global warming.
Absolutely. Stuff that means something to you, I've always felt like you should be an expert in the topic. If you're going to have guitars hanging behind you, you better know a lot about them. If you're going to have Spider-Man hanging on the wall behind you, you better be able to talk pretty knowledgeably about these sorts of things. But I will tell you, I've told my kids, elementary school, middle school, high school, you learn a lot of things that you will quote unquote never use again in the rest of your life. But when you hold on to these little tidbits of information, you never know. A date, a cocktail mixer, a job interview, you slip one little tidbit of knowledge in there and it makes you sound like you know 1,000,000% more than that.
Smartest person in the room. I mean, you'll find that often. This is a good example, dude. I see these things on TikTok all the time, or even with my nieces. Like, if you're wearing a band t-shirt, like, I'll see somebody go up and be like, oh, this little girl has a Def Leppard shirt on. Oh, what's your favorite Def Leppard song? And she was like, who? What? Like, you're wearing the shirt, dude. Like, little stuff like that. We respect you more if you just know a little bit about what is supposedly important to you.
Absolutely. I'm seeing a lot of that right now with politics. Multiple people online have been like, give me one reason why you're supporting Kamala. And they expect me to be like, I got no answer. You got me. Like, I'm screwed. All you got to do is say, I support the CHIPS Act. Like, just say one thing. And they're like, oh, he knows what he's talking about. Back down, back down.
Yeah.
So you don't have to know a lot. A little goes a long ways.
Yeah, it's so true. We're just going over a little list here. These are all behaviors that will supposedly make people respect you more. So far, it's been pretty accurate. Be less accommodating. This is interesting. We're going to have to read this one a little bit. There's an unhealthy expectation these days when the rest of the world is being asked to accommodate other people's hypersensitivities. In essence, this requires asking competent adults to hamstring themselves to pander to others' weaknesses. So we shouldn't be as accommodating just to fit in with people. That's what this is saying, basically. Like, unapologetically have the things you believe and don't just pander to people to fit in with them, because that doesn't garner any respect, right?
But how would you know I'm pandering? Like, that sounds like mega advice. Like, don't give in to this he, she, they, them kind of garbage, or don't give in to this global warming garbage. Like, I think I would respect people more, even if they said, you know, we should be calling Latinos Latinx. Like, I don't actually agree with that new term, but you sound more respectable. The fact that you even know what it is and would say we should do it. So that seems counterintuitive to me, that you should stand your ground and not give in to what society is expecting of you.
That's an interesting example. I agree with you on that. This person writes, I recall an incident in which an email was sent around the office informing everyone that a new coworker was triggered by the word accountability. In essence, all staff were subtly being asked to avoid using that word so not as to upset this person.
I mean, that's a weird example, accountability. But like I said, if someone's like, you know, they want to go by they, them, and you're calling them he or whatever, you know, you're refusing to go with that. That makes you kind of a douchebag to not even try if somebody has told you that this bothers them. But that's a weird example. The word accountability triggers them?
Apparently so. But to your point, I think that's 100% right, that I would have more respect for the person who's like, oh, no skin off my back. Like, I'll accommodate you feeling better about yourself when I'm around you by saying, you know, what you prefer.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I don't know if I agree with that one.
All right. Well, it's the first one that was pretty questionable on our list of behaviors that make people respect you more.
Right. I just lost respect for this list with that example. So there you go.
Well, let's see if I can pull you back in. Stand up for yourself and enforce your boundaries. Yeah, you should always stand up for yourself. And if you have some boundaries, as long as you make them known, you know, I'll respect them.
Yeah, this is something I've been working on in therapy. You know, I always put everyone ahead of myself, and I thought that was a noble thing that people would respect, quite frankly. You know, the dad role or the boss role or whatever it is, but it can go the other way quite easily. You know, I mean, my therapist now applauds me when the other day I was like, I'm worried about some of my coworkers and myself. And she was like, hallelujah, that you're at least second on that list. You know, like what progress that is. So,
yeah, no, that's interesting. Do you have a hard time setting boundaries? Like, well, I'll just say it out loud. I'll deal with the behavior quite a bit before I audibly set a boundary. And that's shame on me, dude. Shame on me. And I don't know why it's hard for me, but it is.
It's hard for me too, because to some extent you want to let people do what they're going to do or say what they're going to say. But those on your inner circle, the one you're in a relationship with, or your parents or your kids or your cousin or whatever, like, it's very healthy to have boundaries. And I've gotten much better at drawing my own boundaries. And when I've seen my kids do it with their friends, I try to point it out to them that that is a healthy thing. That if that friend made you feel awkward, like, it's okay to draw a boundary and say, like, I'm not hanging out with you anymore, or we're not going to go to a football game if you're just going to scream at the refs or whatever it is. Like, it's okay to have your own boundaries. Stick by them, because usually people, even if they disagree with your boundaries, will respect that you have them.
Yeah. I don't know why it's so hard to tell people your boundaries then. Because, yeah, I mean, if somebody came to me and said, like, hey, this is a boundary for me, it makes me uncomfortable when you do that. Like, I would totally, you know, accommodate them. If it was reasonable, you know, maybe it's not reasonable. And I say, screw you, dude. I'm not going to do that.
I think the fear is you're going to look weak. You know, I got a dirt bike buddy that I go ride with, but I haven't ridden with him in like almost 2 years, because every time we go out, I get the crap beaten out of me because I won't draw boundaries with him. I won't tell him that hill is too big for me to climb, or I'm not going down that cliff. I'm not jumping off that ledge, but I feel like I'm going to look weak or not one of the guys. So I'm just like, all right, I'm going to jump off this cliff and hope for the best. It usually doesn't work out very well. So I got to be better about drawing boundaries on a variety of topics in life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I relate so much to that, dude. Yeah, just doing stupid shit that you're not comfortable with, or maybe is past your skill level or whatever, because you don't want to feel weak. The ego is a terrible thing oftentimes.
Absolutely. And we specialize in boundaries, by the way. I mean, we work under the thumb of the FCC and radio. You and I have become masters in knowing where that line is and how to go right up to it. And those are boundaries that were set for us, but that we also implement and respect by getting as close as we can and then stopping.
Testing. Yeah, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. Welcome to the Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve. We're going over a list right now of behaviors that make people respect you more. This one just says be as authentic as possible. And I tell you what, unless your authentic self is an asshole or just a douchebag, I would agree with this. People like an authentic person, saying stuff like, oh, hey, that's a boundary of mine or whatever. Like oftentimes when you're authentic and you're like, yeah, that really bugs me, or I like this, just your authentic self, people are drawn to that shit, dude.
Absolutely. Especially in our world of talk radio, podcasting, and all that stuff. You can look at what someone else has done and think all I have to do is duplicate what they did and I should be just as successful. It may be like some premises of it, like talking about news like someone does that they've been successful. But no, things that are personality based like radio and like podcast, your authenticity is the only thing that sets you apart from anyone else. Everyone can just read the news. It's our spin on things, our commentary, our personal stories, our authenticity that attracts people to us.
Yes, 100%. And being able to have conversations that, like, some may be like, oh, I can't believe Nick just asked Steve if, his son was watching porn. Like, this is just our authentic self, dude. These are conversations that we'd have on the phone. So I don't know why I'm not going to say it here, Yeah.
Trendsetters, by definition, are different than everyone else. They've thought outside the box a little. They put a new spin on it or just blown it all to hell, and they're just something you've never seen before. So authenticity is definitely respected in the media world, but in real life too. If somebody's authentic, you know what they're about, or their sense of humor or whatever it is, like that attracts you to other people.
100%. We got a couple more here on this list of little behaviors that make people respect you more. How about this one? I agree with this. Show grace rather than arrogance.
Yeah, I struggle with that.
What? Well, no, maybe you don't. Because what I think of when I hear that is like your arrogance at a restaurant of, oh, look at my car, or get my food to me, that type of thing. What you're talking about is personality driven, and I don't find it arrogant. I find it confident. So grace rather than arrogance goes a long way with me, dude.
Well, I appreciate that. And yes, I'm more arrogant when the microphone's on, I would think, because you got to be definitive in this kind of stuff we do. But no, you're right. In general, grace obviously gets you a long ways. And we were at a restaurant the other night, Kennedy and I, and the waitress came over with something just so preposterous, but it wasn't her fault. And we had just talked about this topic of showing grace to your waitress, and if they make a mistake, just let it go. How would you feel about this? We were at a pretty nice restaurant, and they came over to us. Like, they put our food down at the table, and we were like, hey, we don't have any silverware napkins. And this waitress looks at us and says, we're out of silverware.
Out of silverware? Well, are we eating with our hands? Like, you should close the restaurant if you're out of silverware.
Right. She was like, it's homecoming night, and we just got slammed with all of these people we weren't planning on, and we don't have any clean silverware. So I was like, how are we supposed to eat? And she takes out of her little waitress bib thing, pre-wrapped, like picnic plastic, spoons and forks and knives, and that cheap little paper napkin in there. And she was like, I am so sorry, but this is what you have to eat with. In this nice restaurant that is not cheap, here are plastic forks and knives and paper napkins for you.
What did you order? Like, what was it, a steak or,
I ordered a chicken, artichoke chicken. So yes, I had to actually cut a piece of meat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you dealt with it. I'm going to have some grace on it because I guess there's not much you can do. But, like, why don't you go wash something, dude? Like, have somebody wash 2 settings.
Exactly. But I have to think someone has suggested that. They must be short-staffed, or they're working on it now, and my plate's sitting here. So it was that thing of like, there's nothing I can do about this. And this poor waitress, it's not her fault. So I just gave her grace and said, hey, all good. We'll accommodate.
Sure. Because what skin is it off your back? And you know what? It'll be a story for you guys to tell each other. Hey, remember when we had to eat with plastic, blah, blah, blah. So,
Right.
yeah, it's
I
fine.
will tell you, as soon as the waitress did walk away, Kennedy was like, I don't think we're ever eating here again. Like, they don't have freaking silverware for us. I was like, this can't be a recurring thing. She was like, I don't know if I care. You gave us no silverware. Like, that's not okay.
What did she order? Did she have to cut her shit too?
Ooh, I don't remember. But yeah, it was something that did require silverware for sure.
That's funny, man.
Yeah.
Too bad you didn't have your Swiss Army knife with you, dude.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if the waitress respected us more, but she was expecting to be yelled at. So I have to think she must have had some amount of respect that we gave her grace and let her off the hook.
For sure. These are all behaviors that make people respect you more. Be as well-mannered as possible, Steve.
Will you please go F yourself?
Yeah, just to always be well-mannered. And I think that fits into the category. Say your pleases, say your thank yous, and, it goes a long way. Because a lot of people don't have manners anymore.
They really don't. It's sad. And I have taught my kids manners from day one on up. And I cannot tell you how many restaurants we have been in where my kids say please and thank you. And the waiter or waitress is like, wow, your kids are really polite. And I always say, like, really? Like, isn't that kind of setting the bar low? And he was like, oh, I can't tell you how many kids would never say that to me.
It's crazy, but I think it's right. And your kids have always been polite, noticeably, because a lot of kids our age don't say please and thank you, or often have to be reminded, like, what do you say? So yeah, I don't think it comes natural. You did a good job with instilling that, and it goes a long way.
Just a sad commentary on this world that a simple please and thank you makes you stand out above everyone else.
Yeah, it shows the privilege of the world, really,
Yeah.
Last one on the list of behaviors that make people respect you more. Own your mistakes. We often lose a great deal of respect for anyone that tries to hide or minimize their missteps. And, can we say Trump?
Yeah, Trump will never own a mistake, and that's a sign of his narcissism and the fact that he only gives a crap about himself. And I learned years ago that in almost any conflict, if you've screwed up, if you're the one that's caused that conflict, just own it. It diffuses the entire situation. And yeah, people end up actually respecting you more. And just learn from the mistake. It's the other thing I always tell people, like, I don't care if you screwed up as long as you learn from it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Who do I think you're, Jesus walking on water? Like, we all make those mistakes. Like, just own them. It makes you so much more human and relatable because we all make those mistakes. And you know what? When somebody admits a mistake to me, I'm right away like, no problem. We'll figure it out. We'll do this. Like, you're right. It is just an easy way to disengage.
Yeah. And it's relatable. We've all made mistakes. So if somebody humbles themselves and admits it, yeah, you're probably going to give them more respect. So, and I will tell you, speaking of respect, like, our social media stuff, I've been doing a lot of arguing with people on there for a variety of reasons, to get more views, to get our opinions out there. I always say, I'm not trying to change the mind of the person I'm arguing with. I'm hoping to influence people reading that and thinking like, boy, if this guy says it's okay to, support gay marriage, then maybe it's okay for me too. Like, trying to,
yes,
and I have very little respect for people when I've debated them into a corner and they won't just admit the mistake or just admit, maybe my logic was flawed. I've seen a couple of late, including that big Dave Matthews fan. Remember him?
Yes, yeah, for sure. And you're right, dude. That's he disengaged right away and things got a little mellower.
Well, we started arguing, and he started calling us out on being Dave Matthews fans, which I was like, oh, you're not getting us on this. And he was like, I've been 6 concerts this year. How many you two been? I started listing all your concerts, traveling the world and all this stuff. And we were kind of going back and forth. And then I made a Dave Matthews joke to him where I was like, if you think Dave Matthews is voting for Trump, then you've been hitting that Jimmy thing a little too hard, which is a Dave song. And the guy was like, all right, touche. That was a good point. You got me. And then everything just diffused. All the tension. We ended up being like, hey, buddy, you're cool. Like, it's all good. You're my favorite Trumper now. Like, it diffused the situation. We both had some respect for each other all of a sudden.
Human moment is what we like to call it. We just had a human. We saw each other for what we are, humans.
Yeah. So I got a list here about comeback phrases to say when somebody's rude to you, which I think is good, certainly in the social media world if you're going to reply to comments, but also in real world with coworkers or with clients. You don't have to be a jerk about it all the time, but there are good ways to have comebacks, right?
Oh, 100%. A comeback can make your day or ruin your day. You know, oftentimes you go home and you're like, oh, I wish I would have said this. I should have said this. It's nice to have some comebacks for common things in your holster.
That's a big thing, the thinking of it later. And, you know, I was thinking about that this weekend as I was debating with a lot of people that this show that we do, it's live. You know, we don't script any of this out. We may come in with some news stories, but our feedback, the things we say is just live. It's just off the top of our head. But boy, when I can sit down and really think about a comeback, I can be pretty funny, be pretty visceral. When I have time to craft things, I can really score some points.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think about it on this show, like, oh, I should have brought that up, or I should have said that. That would have been really funny. Like, we miss things all the time. Some people are so well versed in comebacks, dude, that you just, I mean, talk about respecting people. I'm just like, oh, man, that was quick and good.
Well, and some of them that I may use on the show are things I have worked out elsewhere, like in the comments section. If I come up with a good zinger, I'll put it in my mental Rolodex so that if the same topic comes up here, I've got it to pull from, you know. But I've got a list here of just, I guess what you would say are more just common ways to put someone in check, which may either diffuse it or buy you time to come up with that extra zinger you're thinking.
Sure.
Comebacks to remember when someone is rude to you. If you say, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Could you repeat yourself? The phrase is a great way to catch someone off guard. It subtly suggests that their comment was simply not worthy of your attention.
That's interesting because you brought that comment up a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, and it is a great way to come back to somebody and tell them like, hey, what, you're not worth listening to really, but B, make them repeat their stupidity.
Right. And that's when I brought that up was, if you make someone repeat the lie or whatever their propaganda is back to you, they psychologically or subconsciously start questioning themselves. They don't want to say the lie twice. So you can really put them in their place. But this one has the added zinger of, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Could you repeat yourself? That really is, condescending, right?
Totally, dude. Totally. Dance for me, monkey.
Moving on down the list here, comebacks. Tell someone thank you for your perspective. By thanking them, you're acknowledging their input without agreeing or getting defensive. The phrase works exceptionally well in professional settings. So it's basically a nice way of saying, I don't agree with you, but thank you for your perspective.
It's interesting because I do see that working well in professional situations. Like in a casual situation, I may say it to somebody, but most of the time, I think it's going to be more entertaining and a better conversation if I say, your perspective is bullshit, dude. I mean, tell me why it's not. How about that?
See, that's what I would do in the comment section of like, hey, I appreciate your perspective. You're a flaming moron for it, but I appreciate your perspective.
Right, yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good one to use. I could see, I immediately thought of my wife using that in her, lawyer world of like, oh, thanks for your perspective. Moving on.
Opinion noted. You've heard me say that on the show. I used to say it to our old producer all the time. Like, okay, opinion duly noted. Moving on. It's a subtle way of saying, like, I don't agree with you at all, but we're moving on now. I'm done with this.
Yeah, I heard you.
How about this one? I think this is more probably best used in relationship arguments where you're trying to let someone know that you've been hurt, but you're not trying to, be a complete dick about it. If you say, I appreciate your concern, but your words are pretty hurtful regardless of your intentions.
Ooh, it hits me. That hits me in the heart, dude, because like we've talked about intentions before and how it's such an intentions are such an odd world because I feel like sometimes they need to be said, but in other times, no, you shouldn't say your intentions. Just go to know, like, I hurt you. Doesn't matter what your intent was, you hurt me. Oof, that hits me to the core, dude. So I'll shut up right away if you say that to me.
Yeah, it's a clever way to put someone back on guard or off guard. I don't know, but I've had so many arguments with women where they say stuff like that, and you're like, boy, that really hurt my feelings. And their entire rebuttal is, well, that wasn't my intention, so therefore you took it wrong. Therefore, I'm not going to apologize.
Yeah, that takes it one step further. I'm not going to apologize. But I used to say that to Rachel. Like, I'm so sorry I hurt your feelings. That was not my intention. And she asked me several times, take that was not my intention off that. Dude, it works better for me being her, and I'm like, I finally get it. It's still hard, but I get it.
These are good comeback phrases when someone's being rude to you. That's an interesting opinion. I'll give it the consideration it deserves.
Ooh, yeah.
Ouch.
And if you said that to me, do I just assume right away that like he thinks it deserves no consideration at all?
I would, yes, that's the implication.
Right.
It's even funnier if you say that. I'll give it the attention it deserves. So anyway, what else should we talk about? Like, give it no time, obviously. But yeah, it's implied.
No time for consideration. I've seen a lot of people like over the past few years, and I don't even know how I feel about this, but they say like, have the kind of day you deserve. Like instead of telling someone to have a good day, like have the day you deserve.
Yeah, ouch. Which brings me to the next one on this list. I don't know if this is a good way to diffuse a situation. Comeback phrases to use when someone's rude to you. Say, hey, I'm sorry you're having a bad day. Okay? I'm sorry you're having a bad day. Whatever you just said can only come out of your mouth if you're having a bad day.
I've used it before. I've said it to bitchy people, whether it was in a restaurant or someone cutting me off and yelling at me. I've said it, sorry you're having a bad day. Hope it gets better, dude.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. There's a lot of psychology going on in these things. I can't tell if some of these are a good way to de-escalate things or if you're actually doing an articulate, mature way of escalating the situation.
Yeah, it's almost like telling someone, like, I wish you could calm down. I'm sorry that you're having such a hard time. I wish you could calm down.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's a little counterintuitive, some of them.
It reminds me of during the Kamala Harris-Trump debate when Kamala said to Trump that something like, you lost the election in 2020, and I can tell you're having a hard time processing that. That's a very mature, therapeutic sort of thing to say. I'm sorry you're having a hard time processing that. But the way she said it was such a condescending dick thing. They're like, sorry you can't wrap your head around the fact that you lost.
Right. Like what we were just saying. Like, I'm sorry you're not emotionally mature and intelligent enough to, process all that.
You're painting him in a corner too, because then anything they then say, how dare you, or no, I did win. Like, I know you're having a hard time processing this. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. It can't be easy. I get it. I understand.
Yeah. Boy, some of these are good for the comment section because you sound like you're taking the high road, but you're not.
Yeah.
Oh, but this is similar to what you just said. Telling somebody, I hope your day is as pleasant as you are.
Yeah.
Like you said, and if you're, day you deserve.
Yeah. And if you're not being pleasant to me, I'm obviously telling you, like have a jacked up day, dude. You're a pile.
Yes. How about this one? Somebody said something rude to you and you say, wow, I can't believe you said that out loud.
I've said that one before too, dude. I can't believe you said that out loud. Did you say that? Because sometimes people say things that are so terrible or just so stupid that you're like, did you say that out loud?
It's sort of the core of what we do on the show that people often say, like, did he really just say that? And that's cool in the talk show world.
Yeah.
Say that to your coworker or your spouse or whatever. Like, I can't believe you had the balls to say that out loud. Like, people heard that, do you know?
Right. Did you really just say that? That's funny, dude.
Here's a good one. So somebody says something rude to you and you say, hey, thanks. I'm actually not accepting unsolicited feedback today.
That's still one of I feel like that should be on a t-shirt at Walmart or something, it's kind of cheesy, but I don't know that I would use it.
Yeah. How about this one? If you say, I'm going to give you a chance to rephrase that.
I love that, dude. I love that. I'm all about second chances. So yeah, it's a nice way of saying what you just said was so stupid. Like, try again.
That's a very backhanded sort of mature thing to say because you're offering him a chance to take back what you said, but you're pointing out like that was so stupid what you just said. I'm going to let you rethink that for a second.
And think about that, dude. That's a lot. I've heard parents say that to small children before. Like, I'm going to let you try that one again. Like, that was unacceptable. Try again, pal.
I'm going to write some of these down and just simply reply some of these things in the comment sections of, did you actually type that? I'm going to give you a chance to rephrase that. Just put it back on them.
Stupid meter is off the charts.
All right. And this will be the last one. These are comeback phrases to remember when somebody is rude to you. Let's change the subject to something more positive.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing to say. And I feel like I've said that before. We talked about it on the podcast a couple of weeks ago about how it's draining to hang out with people that are really negative all the time. You brought up Debbie Downer as an example. Let's be positive, dude. I love being around people that I leave with, they fill my cup in some way. And if you just drain my cup, that is a nice way to someone to just course correct a little bit. Hey, let's talk about something more positive.
Yeah, you're effectively shutting them down, but you're phrasing it in a way where you give them the option of let's change the subject to something more positive. So yeah, it's a polite way to shut someone down.
Yeah. No, that's a good list. I definitely think you should print it off on your matrix dot printer and use it in the comments section.
And speaking of Debbie Downer, you referenced Saturday Night Live. 50th season kicked off. Did you watch the comeback episode?
I did, dude. I was so impressed with so many different people in that opening act. I thought was pretty damn good.
It was great, and I love to see some of the old cast members coming back. I mean, that was Dana Carvey doing Joe Biden, right?
Yeah, and doing them really well, by the way.
Very well. Andy Samberg was out there. Of course, Maya Rudolph. I mean, it was hilarious. But do you know what from that opening bit just made my heart warm and glow?
Was it Jim Gaffigan?
Jim Gaffigan was good too, actually. And he came out. I was like, is that freaking Jim Gaffigan?
Yeah, it's Tim Walz. I mean, he was so spot on.
Yeah, no, they cast it all very well. But no, listen, before the first Trump-Kamala debate, I had made the prediction that he would go off the deep end. We'd all be mocking him and making fun of him. He'll say something so stupid that Saturday Night Live would do a parody of it. But they weren't on when that debate happened. So I thought would have done something about the debate, but they're not back on air for a month.
Yes. What was it?
They brought up the eating pets thing. I mean, They didn't harp on it, but they referenced back to the debate. They brought up the eating pets thing. So I was so happy that Saturday Night Live, that it was so cringy and mock-worthy that even though it was a month removed, they still made sure they slipped in a eating the pets joke.
Not only in the open, but then we get to, by the way, I don't know who hosted it. She's some old lady that's an actress, and she was not that great, in my opinion. But
she was on Designing Women. And I
yes.
was like, she has to have done something more modern. That was in the 80s. I don't know what show she's on, but yeah, I get your point.
But Weekend Update, again, fantastic. And they even made a joke to start it out and just said hey, everyone was saying I bet you really wish you were on the air right now with all this crazy stuff happening. And Colin was like, I'm sure there'll be more. It's never ending with that guy. And they brought up a lot of the pet stuff, that kind of stuff. It was a great episode, I thought.
Yeah. No, I'm glad they're back. And Saturday Night Live is so good at articulating what we're all feeling. And so the fact that, they held on to the eating pets joke and made it out there, it's just articulates so well that Trump is literally an international joke. That more than ever, just everyone is belittling and mocking that man, which is why I just feel like he cannot possibly win this election.
We keep riding the blue wave, inviting newcomers to join us and all of our troops. Hey, let's just keep this positivity going, and we'll get there in 40 plus a couple days.
Exactly. So, find us on the social medias. There's a lot of political stuff there. There's also non-political, like this episode you've just listened to. So find us on YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, X, Facebook, and comment, share away.
844-48-VOCAL. Use your telephone as a microphone. Until next time.
What's up, bitches? It's your boy, Joe Rogan. Thanks for checking out Nick and Steve and The Vocal Minority. The boys give you 2 podcasts each and every week. If you like my podcast, you're going to love these guys. This is my official personal endorsement. Please be a champion and blow these guys up.